25th. Welcome to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Chaplinsky, and as we prepare for the 2017 municipal elections, we're speaking to some candidates in advance for some of those top races, and we have a couple interviews for you later in the show. Doug Smith also going to join us for drawing conclusions. But first, is the state budget impasse over? Well, State Senator Tony Wong, a Republican, is here to tell us more about a budget deal that was reached on Tuesday. Tony, as always, we're so happy to have you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see you. And yes, I am extremely excited about the prospects of a bipartisan compromise budget that is long past due. We are in 116 days without a budget. And for me, it is a reflection of pain, growth, and compromise. And as with any compromise, not everybody is happy, but then we move forward like adults. And so for me, the three big priorities of this compromise budget is one, first and foremost, that it holds our municipalities and our educational funding relatively harmless with a structural plan to the future of some redistribution, but allows our municipalities to plan appropriately. Number two, it looked at structural changes in regards to how our government has to function into the future. Look, we didn't get to this crisis overnight, and we're not going to fix this overnight, but there are inherent decisions that we need to make. Some examples of that is the fact that we finally respected the spending cap that was supposed to be implemented when we imposed the income tax, but by some other reason, the legislative body never enacted it. So we're going to do that in this budget. We're also going to look to limit bonding and borrowing so that we don't put our cost into a credit card mentality. We also look to help our municipalities be able to cope with challenging economic times, to be able to plan forth and do and deliver their services. And number three, I think what we also see is a growth that Democrats and Republicans realize that if we don't work together, that we will all fail together. And it allowed us to get together, reach the compromise, make the decisions that are necessary. And unfortunately, my hope is that the governor will join us in this process. But we have recognized as a legislative body that it is important for us to step up and start representing the districts and the communities that elected us. And to say, Governor, if you're not willing to join in the solutions that we've offered, my hope is that we'll have votes in both the House and the Senate, 24 in the Senate and 101 in the House, to say to you, we will override your potential veto. It is a cat and mouse game, and I wish it didn't have to be. But, you know, as my wife would say, 2-year-olds played better in the sandbox than you all have been. So grow up, and let's make sure we make the contributions that we need to make to help our state moving forward. And we're a long ways from solving the challenges that we have, but the first sign we have is let's work together to find solutions.
Now, I know one of the changes in the budget that was approved is the cut that would go to UConn. So initially in the GOP proposal, 120 would be cut. In this one, 65 million. So what's your take on that? How do you respond to that?
I respect UConn as the preeminent public school in our state, and it is the pride and joy of our state. And people need to understand that the total budget for UConn from the state budget is $1 billion. And the previous proposal by the Democratic majority had 100 million of it being cut. I thought it was ill-chosen by the administration, the UConn administration, to come in a full-out challenge and the provocation of that cut. I understand we could always talk, we can make the challenges. What we looked at in making the cuts to them was, one, to ask UConn to streamline and create greater economy of scales in their various departments and agencies. We also asked professors to add on an additional course workload, so there would be less potential faculty hirings that would add cost and benefit burdens in the long run. We also looked at the fact that we could no longer afford to provide free tuition for children of faculty and staff. Those are not unusual challenges in difficult times, These are compromises that I think everybody needed to step up and share sacrifice. I found that the reaction was surprising, because I will offer to this. The focus is about education for the kids and enriching that opportunity. And I know UConn has an important role. But when you look at that, you confront that with the reaction, the positive reaction of Dr. Brody of Housatonic, and now taking on the dual presidency of Gateway in New Haven. His reaction to the education cuts, which impacted community colleges as well, was to say, you know what? We're going to make do with what we have. We still have a great opportunity and a great resource of an academic center to educate the people in our community. We should never move away from that. Let's make do with what we have and see what we can do. I found that to be a refreshing as well as a empowering reaction in difficult economic times where difficult decisions are going to be made. And I hope we take from that, instead of saying, take away and I'm upset, or recognizing that I'm lucky and we still have the opportunity to still make contributions. That's what we need. That's the type of attitude and energy we need moving forward, because we're a long ways from getting out of the darkness that we're in, and we need to have that combined shared spirit of doing things and working together to create solutions for our state.
And now, Tony, I hear a lot from nonprofits recently. There's been a lot of uncertainty for them, a lot of worry. Places like the Kennedy Center not sure what's going to happen. So what can you say about nonprofits in the budget?
Well, nonprofits are the fabric of our community. They are part of our community. When you talk about the Kennedy Center, they've been in existence for over 60 plus years in supporting individuals with intellectual developmental disability. And their recent foray into autism support has been remarkable. They are part of our community. We know the directors, we know the board members, we know their staff. They care for our loved ones. The challenge is, unfortunately, most people don't understand that the state of Connecticut has the same exact service delivery. And what we found out in a study that was commissioned by Representative T.R. Rowe now, back then, was to create a apples to apples comparison. What came out of that study was the fact that our nonprofits have the same quality standards, the same delivery of the services at potentially 50 cents on the dollar to our state agencies. Now, the governor made a foray with this difficult budget challenge to create efficiencies. So he looked to privatize group homes. But unfortunately, that was met with legal challenge by the State Employees Union. And now with the recent labor relations deal with the State Employees Bargaining Unit contract that locks this state up, legally binding it for 10 years into a labor agreement. One of the provisions of that labor agreement was no more privatization of state agency services. It takes and puts one hand behind our back to support our nonprofits, but also to create efficiencies in the value of every tax dollar that we spend. Because we need to care for those that are most at risk and vulnerable. Let's maximize that to support agencies like the Kennedy Center, as well as so many other great agencies in our state that do the work, but struggle against meager budgets, meager reimbursements, and challenges across the board. We don't make it any easier in state government for those nonprofits to do their critical mission.
So other than nonprofits, is there anything in the budget, you mentioned it was a compromise, that you're not such a big fan of or you wish could be different?
Well, one big factor is something has to give. And one of the challenges is, and I'm fighting to try to increase the funding for that. The Green Bank is one of the most innovative public-private initiatives that the state, through their ratepayer deductions, is able to fund the Green Bank, which goes in with private sector investors as well as industries to say, let's make investments to green energy, renewable energy projects that would have never gotten off the ground. So we in this budget swept the money that could seriously jeopardize their existence. We looked at energy efficiency funds that allowed energy efficiencies for organizations as well as homes to be able to create energy efficiencies, caulking and streamlining their homes to save money on energy. And those funds got swept. So I think one of the things that I wish we could do better was to recognize that we as a state need to make a commitment to clean and renewable energy, and that we cannot forfeit the investment and the commitment into the future to get to that level of tipping point in utilization of those renewable energies. So that is one area I thought I wish we had to do over, and the ink's not dry yet, and I think we may be able to increase funding to that. But that's one area. I think the other area is really our hands are tied because of the CBAC agreement that was agreed to, that locks this state up for 10 years. And it's specific only to state employees. Now, what's remarkable, and people need to understand, is state employees are the only 1 in 3 in the entire country of states that has their pensions and benefits collectively bargained. When you look at unions, such as private sector unions, municipal employee unions, first responders, and even our beloved and valued teachers, all of those unions have their pensions and benefit set by statute. There has to be a fairness. But unfortunately, that CBAC agreement locks in for 10 years our ability to ask for additional contributions and additional fairness. So as a result, one other thing I regret is the fact that we're now asking teachers to contribute an additional 1% into their pension. And look, the state has, in some ways, fallen short in our commitment to fund the teachers' pensions. We're just hoping that we make it up, but we have to get to strong economic footings in order to make sure that we meet the obligations we have to our teachers and to every state employee and municipal employee in this state. Look, it's an agreement, and it's a commitment that we have to honor. But when you don't have enough resources to care for those seniors and vulnerable children and those impacted by illness or addiction, then you have to make some decisions. And you know what? I think it's the first time in a long time that we had a budget that makes these kind of difficult choices. And I'm encouraged about it.
I mean, as a legislator, this has been all-consuming for you in the past weeks. And you're actually going to Hartford this evening to vote on the budget.
It is all-consuming, but no sympathies for me. I mean,
Right.
I love what I do. It's an incredible honor and privilege to represent the people in the 28th District and to be a voice up there to say, look, government has to be responsive. We can't be in an ivory tower dictating what goes on. One of the frustrations I have right now is we may have a 1,000-page document and it's a lot of moving pieces, but it's not been released yet. I'm hoping that I'm able to read it and digest it and fully understand all the nuances of it, because there may be provisions in there that people may slip in that is beneficial to individuals at the risk of the collective good. So I hope that we are operating more efficiently, more transparently into the future. But make no mistake about it, it is a joy and a privilege, no matter how difficult it is. But yes, I'm not going to hide my enthusiasm that this budget process is over, because the people have been waiting for us to do our job. And look, not only the people we represent, our families. You know, there are vacations that have been held at bay, there are lives and events, but don't feel bad for me. It's what we signed up for. It's a commitment that we have. But let's not forget our families that have been extremely supportive in this.
Of course. And you know, CT Mirror had a story yesterday saying that Governor Malloy's office was not thrilled that they hadn't seen this budget deal yet. How would you characterize that relationship right now between the governor and the General Assembly?
Well, you know, Connecticut in 1639 was the first operating government that had the 3 branches of government. It is called a constitution state because our federal government took a lot of the cues from it. But it had 3 separate branches. You have the executive branch, you have the legislative branch. What I am so encouraged and empowered by is the fact the legislative branch, in a bipartisan compromise basis, Democrats and Republicans, got together and said, we're in a fiscal crisis. We're past 115 days. Let's solve this problem. And if the governor, with his philosophical views and his positions, are not consistent with a broader goal of the representative body, there is a provision that allows us to override the governor's veto. And he may not be happy about it, and he may not be happy about dictating the terms, but I'm really encouraged the fact that we're now speaking up for the people that we represent. Look, not everybody in the legislative body agrees, but I will never begrudge a legislator from Hartford, from Bridgeport, from Waterbury, New London, competing and challenging for views that are to the beneficial of their communities versus mine for Fairfield, Westport, Easton, Weston, and Newtown. It is that kind of a dialogue. It is a representative government. But you know what? I felt it was very powerful for us to say, the representative body has said, we don't agree with your draconian executive order. When you zero out 85 towns in their educational funding, that's not fair. That is not the process that we want to govern by. And we're going to stand up and be counted.
All right. Well, Tony Wong, I know you have to head up to Hartford soon, so we're going to let you go, but it's always a pleasure to have you on. Great talking with you, Tony.
It's always great to talk to you, and continue success.
All right. We're going to step out for a break. We'll be back with more CT Pulse right after this.
Voted best gourmet to go in Fairfield County, Palmer's extensive menu offers everything you'll need to make your next event easy and delicious. Whether you're hosting a small get-together or planning a large celebration, they've got you covered breakfast through dessert. Order online at palmersdarien.com or call 203-655-2077.
Now teeing off, Paul Miller from Miller Nissan in Fairfield.
Excuse me, Mr. Miller. What about my new Sentra?
Right now, lease a 2017 Sentra S for only $97 a month.
He is never going to retire.
Bankwell combines the best personalized service with high-tech banking features for our customers' convenience. We pride ourselves on being a strong community partner. You don't settle for average in anything else you do. Why settle for an average bank? Don't just bank when you can bank well instead. Visit mybankwell.com for more. Manfredi New Canaan is celebrating 3 exceptional years selling Rolex watches and fine jewelry to the Fairfield County community. We appreciate all our loyal clients and look forward to welcoming and helping you discover the perfect gift to celebrate life's most important occasions.
At InSports Trumbull, the game is always on inside.
Registration is now open for our fitness training programs for high school athletes. The InSports Performance Center is offering blast speed classes, athletic functional movement assessments, and both men's and women's elite speed and strength training. Our premier programs help bring athletes to the next level. Call 203-268-1214 for more information. Like and follow us on Facebook.
Black Horse Garage, we fulfill all your sports car needs. We specialize in manufacturer-recommended service and aftermarket high-performance parts and installation. We have one of the nation's top storage facilities and offer a high-end collision department that understands your need for detail. Visit blackhorsegarage.com for more.
Welcome back to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Chaplinsky, and as we prepare for the 2017 municipal elections, we're interviewing some of the candidates in the towns that we cover. Just last week, we caught up with both candidates who are running for New Canaan First Selectman, Kit Devereaux, a Democrat, and Kevin Moynihan, a Republican. We spoke with them about some of the relevant New Canaan issues and about their campaigns. First, we're going to check out our interview with Kit Devereaux. I'm Kate Chaplinsky for the HAN Network, here with our election 2017 candidate conversations. And I'm in New Canaan today at Waveney Park, and I'm joined by Kit Devereaux, who's a Democrat running for First Selectman in New Canaan. Kit, so happy to have you.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here.
Now, you have many years serving New Canaan. You've been on the Board of Finance, Town Council, Charter Revision Commission, currently on the Parks and Recreation Commission. Now, we have to say, in history that we know of, there's never been a Democrat elected to First Selectman in New Canaan. What inspired you to run this year and go for it?
Well, there's never been a Democratic First Selectman, because I really would love to have the job, and I think I have some special skills to bring to it. And believe me, if a Democrat were elected to be first selectmen, the supermarkets would still open and the buses would still run to schools and nothing would stop. It would just be fine.
Yeah. And it could be an uphill battle in some ways. You ready for that? Have you been ready for it?
Oh, heavens, yes.
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 And now some of the big issues that have been talked around town, one of them is cell service.
Yes.
Where to put cell towers, improving, dead spots. And you and your opponent differ a bit on this issue. What's your stance on improving cell service right now? How would you do it if elected?
Well, I think that what we need to do is decide in conjunction with the Utilities Commission what we need to give townwide cell service. I think the schools have to be off the table, but that there's just like never going to be a perfect site.
Right.
So I think what we need to do is find the best sites with a combination of technologies, including DOS, and then move forward. And if a property value was unduly and quantifiably impacted by a cell tower, then I think it would be appropriate for the town to look at some kind of tax concession to help with that.
And now moving on to another issue, always a big one for municipalities, that's budgeting, taxes. What's your take? What's your approach to budgeting should you be elected first selectman?
Well, I am a big fan of zero-based budgeting. And that is where all the department managers start from zero and build their budgets. And so basically everything in the budget has to be approved every year and not just assumed. I also think that if we were to make more efficient the mid-budget request cycle, that then budget managers would have less need to build in safety margins. I think that we should be reassessing all of our fees, our user fees, our permitting fees, our rentals, everything, and look for income where we can get it. Some of these fees are already fully priced, but I still think that there is a real income to find from that. But I think that we need to also look at if we can get the same kind of savings by using renewable energy that the town of Fairfield has realized, because they are realizing more than $2.4 million per year with their renewable energy program, and the investment was minimal. So if it would work here, it's something we need to look at, because we need to look at every possible way to help offset the liabilities that are likely coming down the pike.
Right. And I should say you do have a professional background in finances. And staying on the topic of finances, New Canaan has had some material weaknesses in its system of financial controls. What would you do to change that?
Well, I think it's been changed.
Yeah.
We have a new interim CFO, and also we have now an audit committee. And well, we had one then, but they were busy making sure we didn't have material weaknesses. So I think the system has been adjusted. I would be very surprised if we didn't go forward with balanced accounts and probably no material weaknesses.
Yeah. And, the New Canaan Advertiser had an interesting story the other day saying freedom of information requests are at a 10-year high. What does that tell you? Does it tell you anything important?
Well, it seems to me, although a lot of the FOIA requests are legitimate, there's also a segment of the population that is using it as a weapon. And I think that it would be very good if there's some way we could work to rationalize that process, because it's taking a tremendous amount of time for our town administrator, who is a highly skilled person that needs to be working for the town and not working to fulfill FOIA requests.
Another important issue in town, commuter parking.
Ah, yes.
What is your take? How do we solve the problem? How do we get more parking in New Canaan for commuters?
Okay. Well, I do agree that we need more parking for commuters. I know my opponent feels right off the block, let's go deck the lumberyard. And that might be the right solution. But this has come up a couple of times and been defeated in the past for good reasons. So I think what we need to do is just slow down a minute. We have the studies, quickly analyze them, make the decisions, and then decide what to do. Because we also have a problem with 351 people that park there on a daily basis. And we also need to carefully plan for the idea that there's going to be 700 commuters in and out of the parking lots when the trains come in, not 351 like there are today. And that's a real bottleneck situation.
So other than the issues we've discussed, what's something that you would address when you get elected into office, if you get elected?
Well, I would really like to look closely into transparency in a real way and also civility. So in terms of transparency, what I feel is that we really can do the people's business in front of the people. When I chaired the Lakeview Avenue Bridge Committee, and we did our work, including the entire decision-making process in front of the public, in front of TV cameras, and we came out with a good product. So I think it can be done. In terms of civility, I think we just need to take a step back and understand that we can have differing opinions. We can almost say anything we want. It's how you say it. And that if you offer a differing opinion, to do it respectfully and courteously. Because I think that civility is actually an important part of the quality of life. And I care a lot about our quality of life.
Now, you've called yourself a consensus builder. What does that mean?
Well, that means that you reach out, understand what is the opinion of either the room full of people or the town full of people, and get to understand what the majority is embracing, what do they want. Because I think that it is an elected official's duty to be a public servant, not to, for instance, jam through what they believe, but to reach out and find out what the community wants and embrace that and bring it in.
All right. Well, Kit Devereaux, a Democrat running for first selectman here in New Canaan, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, we're going to wrap things up here on this candidate conversation. We'll see you next time. I'm Kate Chaplinsky for the HAN Network, here with our election 2017 candidate conversations. And I'm joined right now by Kevin Moynihan, a Republican who is running for first selectman of New Canaan. Kevin, so happy to have you join us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Kevin, just some of your background, you're currently on the town council.
Correct.
You've also worked for many years with the Republican Town Committee. You're a retired corporate attorney. You know, New Canaan had an incumbent Republican. So why did you think it was important to throw your hat in the ring and get in this election?
I didn't decide until April to challenge the incumbent, Rob Malazzi. It was mainly because of my concern about natural gas. We haven't had natural gas since natural gas came to town through Waveney Park in 1952, and New Canaan has never had natural gas. And I wasn't happy with the way Rob was handling the natural gas situation, so I decided I should make sure that we got natural gas, and that's one of the reasons I challenged him.
All right, so that inspired you to challenge him.
And now we're going to have natural gas coming to Farm Road in the schools next August.
And now another big issue in town lately has been cell service, in a way that you and your opponent kind of differ. There's been a lot of talk, where do we put cell towers? How do we cover these dead spots that we have? What's your take on that?
Well, for 5 years I've been following the cell service issue, and I am very frustrated that here, all these years later, we're really nowhere. In fact, we're about to lose. Aquarian owns those water towers, and since 2002, 30% of our cell service is covered by the antennas on that water tower. And Aquarian now wants to throw all the antennas off that water tower, including our public safety antennas, which is the only broadcasting location we have for public safety radio in New Canaan. So I don't want to see a cell tower in Waveney Park. I want to keep the antennas on that water tower, because it's an issue of just painting that water tower versus moving the antennas off. The other, you mentioned gaps. It's not a question of gaps. Literally, the top half of our town has almost non-existent to very poor cell service. So we just have to, it's a public safety issue. These days, when our ambulances go out, our fire trucks, our police cars, they're not in communication except by radio. And these days, they need access to data to be able to protect our citizens. We also, you know, it's an issue of if people have an accident in parts of town, people have a heart attack in the yard. A lot of people don't have landlines anymore. You know, they depend upon their cell phones. So it's an issue of public safety today. We have to solve it.
And now another big issue for any municipal leader is going to be budgeting. Taxes important to voters. What's your approach to budgeting, working with the Board of Ed, et cetera, to come up with something that works for taxpayers?
Well, I attended the audit committee meeting last night, and you know, just yesterday or the day before, the governor announced a new budget proposal. And in this one, New Canaan, Westport, and Greenwich will be the only towns in the state out of 169 towns and cities to not only lose their ECS cost sharing for education. We get about we're down to about $350,000. They want us to contribute $800,000 toward the teachers' pension fund this year. So that's not in our budget. We've got real sober issues to deal with respect to our budget this upcoming year. We also have a revaluation coming up next year in 2018. A lot of our high-end property values are down, so we have a real challenge in the next several years with our budget.
Now, an interesting story our own New Canaan Advertiser had yesterday. Just want your reaction to it. Freedom of information requests at Town Hall at a 10-year high. What's your take on that or reaction to it?
It's a bit of a nuisance, especially when people are doing it more as harassment than for legitimate fact gathering. I think the town is and should be open to citizens asking for whatever they want. But these days it's being used as a tactic to accomplish an objective, and I think that's we've had that several years ago. We can't continue to operate that. Darien, by the way, has the same issue. So Darien is looking to solve it by publicizing the people who are overactive with respect to FOIA requests. And I think FOIA was meant to have open government. It should not be used as a harassment tool against government officials.
Would you think of any way to address that should you be elected first selectman? Would you follow in Darien's footsteps,
Darien's talking about publicizing on their website all requests so people know who the people are that are overactive with FOIA requests. And I think you have to address it somehow. It's become a burden on our town hall employees to deal with those requests.
Another big issue in town, commuter parking and finding more of it. What's your position on that?
That's one of my primary issues, one of the primary reasons I differentiated myself. The reason we have a competitive disadvantage now with Greenwich and other towns for commuters moving from New York City is we have a 10-minute longer train ride from Manhattan, from Grand Central, because of the federally mandated slowdown of trains because of the accidents they've had. Plus we have a deficit of commuter parking of at least 300 and perhaps 500 spaces. We have a wait list for the lumberyard lot of 614. We have a wait list for 2 years for our least desirable commuter lot at Talmadge Hill. We have to, for 20 years we've paid for studies on parking. We've always said deck the lumberyard, and the decking the lumberyard would go a long way to solving what is really an economic issue for us today. Our home values are suffering because new residents are choosing not to move to New Canaan. It's easier to go to Greenwich where you can get parking more conveniently. The train ride is less, and it's a competitive disadvantage for us. So my plan is to deck the lumberyard. We can do it with commuter fees paying the cost, bonding it through, and without having taxpayers pay for it.
Now, Kevin, you're a very active Republican, and you've helped some other Republicans on their campaigns, including Mitt Romney. You were on President-elect Donald Trump's Finance Committee. Any plans to continue working with the Trump administration now or in the future?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm working with the Trump administration. I think...
Sorry, President-elect, right.
I think I've been a Republican since I moved to New Canaan 36 years ago. I grew up as a Democrat.
Oh, interesting.
I know the difference, and I've been active on the federal level with Senate candidates and other candidates. I was very active with the Mitt Romney fundraising effort. I'm a Republican. I like, on the national and state level, I'm very concerned about having Republican thinking. At the local level, we don't really have commuter parking issues that are Republican or Democrat or self-service issue, so it's not really a relevant issue on the local level.
Right. And now, other than the issues we've discussed, what's something that you want to address if elected?
Well, we've covered most of them. I would mention, since I've been on the town council, one of the things I'm most proud of, I have the Waveney Park Conservancy hat on. We're sitting here at Waveney Park, which is
beautiful
300-acre facility.
Yeah.
Almost half as big as Central Park. Most people don't realize that. And 3 years ago, I had the idea of creating a conservancy like the Central Park Conservancy. I recruited Bob Sillert to run it, and we now have almost $500,000 of investment with private dollars. Over beyond the mansion here, there's a area called the Cornfields, which is a 30-acre piece of property. It's going to be a beautiful new meadow. We have new trails because of the Waveney Conservancy, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of, having been on the town council. And I look to further the efforts to improve Waveney Park. It's a beautiful asset.
It really is,
really
yeah.
is a jewel.
And we've spoken to members of the Conservancy. It's a great group. They're doing some great work there.
I would also mention, we have the athletic fields, which we just had an unfortunate cost overrun on.
Yes.
And that's an example of transparency in government. I mean, it was really appalling that at the end of June we realized we had an overrun of 20%, and that was not communicated to our town council, to our board of finance. And I talked about transparency in the caucus race. Transparency means you have to be open with information. You have to be candid, and I would plan to be a candid and open first selectman.
All right, Kevin Moynihan, a Republican running for first selectman of New Canaan. Kevin, thanks again for joining us and talking today.
Thank you.
All right, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
We're
you.
going to wrap things up here on this candidate conversation. We'll see you next time. So again, those are our interviews with both candidates running for New Canaan First Selectman. Now we're also speaking with the 3 candidates vying for Trumbull First Selectman. We'll have those on next week's CT Pulse at 12:30. And of course, we're going to be live with election night coverage on November 7th. More on that to come, but be sure to check it out. We'll have results and analysis. We're going to step out for a break. When we come back, it's time for some drawing conclusions with Doug Smith.
Wild Birds Unlimited.
At Wild Birds Unlimited of Brookfield, get expert advice from our certified bird feeding specialists. We offer always fresh, clean seed that will be sure to attract birds to your home feeder. Experience our excellent customer service. Open 7 days a week. Visit us at 317 Federal Road, Brookfield.
Wild Birds Unlimited. We bring people and nature together.
If you've ever thought about owning a motor coach or learning about what it's like to travel the open road in superior style and comfort, then contact Dave's RV Center in Danbury, Connecticut. Offering the best quality Class A motorhomes from Newmar, travel trailers and fifth wheel lines from Surveyor, and a toy hauler line from Work and Play. Choose from Newmar's Gas Line, Baystar and Canyon Star, or from Newmar's Diesel Line, Ventana and Dutch Star. And with unparalleled service and maintenance, Dave's RV is committed to keeping you and your motor coach safely on the road and enjoying it to the fullest. Stop by their showroom, 2 Industrial Plaza Road, Danbury, Connecticut, or call 877-483-3866.
Whether you're looking for a great test prep program, tutoring to boost your grades, or a blast-off toward the college of your dreams, C2 Education is here to help. There is nothing one-size-fits-all about our programs. We offer customized tutoring and test prep for each student. Call us today at 203-423-3328.
At Rings End, we say it's time to re-love your home. Time to refresh and reinvigorate the way you live. And whether you're redoing something big or small, remember the letters RE stand for Rings End. We're the new model in home remodeling.
UK Gourmet is the largest specialty grocer in the area, featuring food from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Over 80 teas to choose from and a brilliant assortment of biscuits to go with them. Over 70 cheeses from grass-fed cows, which makes a smashing difference in taste. The creamiest chocolate you'll ever taste using no artificial colors or preservatives. So say hooray for UK Gourmet, 78 Stony Hill Road in Bethel, or visit ukgourmet.us.
Welcome back to CT Pulse. It looks like the Doug Smith jack-o'-lantern is about to get crushed.
Yeah, a little bit of smashing pumpkins there.
Doug, I'm going to have to make a Doug Smith pumpkin this year, jack-o'-lantern. All right,
It will get smashed.
Let's look at the cartoons you have for us this week. Most of them are Halloween themed.
It's the Halloween edition.
Yeah, but tell us about this one.
Well, that's in Reading. It's not really Halloween themed, but if you did see a hovering sign on Route 53, it'd be kind of creepy, I guess. But that's the Reading Roadhouse is coming back.
Yes.
Young couple has bought the place, and I guess he's a restaurateur in Manhattan, so it's going to make a go
People
of it.
are really excited
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
nice. It's an icon.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Tell us about this. This was a Milford cartoon.
Right, the annual Hallow Weekend, which I keep mispronouncing as Hello Weekend, but it's on the Milford Green, and a lot of the stores are participating. It's a lot of fun for the kids, and I guess it's a way to keep the kids off the street late at night. So.
Yeah, and it's a nice promotion of that
Right.
via cartoon. All right, we have a little pumpkin humor up next.
Right, that's a generic one that's running in a lot of the papers. I got inspired by that old Peanuts cartoon when Lucy's carving the pumpkin in front of Linus, and he's like, "You didn't tell me you were going to kill it."
Oh, that is a good one. All right, I like this one too, the Stratford Cat Project,
Right.
having an adoption event.
Yeah.
Perfect time
Right.
for a witch to maybe adopt
I
her
was
black
wondering-
cat.
Yep, that's where I got my cat from, the Stratford Cat Project, so it's close to home. I always just wondered how the cats stay on the broom.
I know, right?
It's
Well, they're very, you know,
I
they're
guess
good
maybe
like
there's
that.
some
They have
magic
great balance,
or something. I
great
don't know.
balance. And I like your little ghosts in the corner that you have for further information there. And a new cell tower up next, a new cell tower near the town border. What town is this for?
That's New Canaan. I did like a, made a Frankenstein tower.
Yeah, cell tower, always a big issue there, a little Frankenstein
Maybe if the
humor.
power goes out and the tower's not working, it'll be like the monster saying we belong dead or something.
And up next, of course, we have a lot of smash and grab crimes all over.
Right.
This one, Halloween.
That's in Darien, it's been an ongoing thing with breaking into cars in that town. I guess they're like the Fairfield County capital for car break-ins.
People leave a lot of good stuff in their cars
They
there,
do.
too. Jeez.
They're always saying like there was like several $100s in their car.
$3,000.
Yeah. Go figure. And a Rolex
Not
watch.
in my car, so there's no need for a smash and grab at my car. And finally, Easton Dog Park families.
Right, that ran last week in Easton, a bit of werewolf humor. Co-workers saw the cartoon and mentioned they didn't want the werewolf to get the dog. I assured them that any dog who turns around and sees a werewolf like that is going to break the leash and take off.
Very
Although
true.
anyone who dresses their pets up deserves to get mauled by a
Hey,
werewolf.
I got my dog a hot dog costume, all right?
Okay.
He wears it all the time, just
my
around
cat
the house.
won't let me put costumes on her, so.
All right, Doug. Well, as always, thanks
Okay.
for joining us and happy Halloween.
You too. Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap things up here on CT Pulse. If you missed anything, you can watch us on demand later. We'll see you next time.